Welcome back, Commander. Though it may not know it yet, the galaxy is under threat, and to combat this threat, two idiots must teach some scientists that maybe experimenting on aliens so dangerous that they had to uplift the Krogum to fight them is not the best idea, okay? The game is Mass Effect, and this is the N7 Project.
Status report.
Okay, how's it going, Zach?
Oh, I can't complain. I mean, I feel like we just did this about an hour ago.
Yeah, only about.
What are you up to
40
these days?
I specifically held back something to talk about so that we could talk about it in the second section. Oh yeah, my dog is a little bit sick and he's going a little bit crazy.
Oh no.
Yeah, he got an infection. It's the papillomavirus, canine papillomavirus, which makes these really gross oral warts. He looks super nasty right now. They are, it's not dangerous in any way. It does cause him some amount of discomfort, but it's not like a life-threatening disease or anything. Like, it doesn't even make him really feel all that bad. It's just kind of tender. But what it does mean is that he can't go to the dog park, he can't go to doggy daycare, and he can't like even go to like another friend's. Like, we couldn't bring him over to your house and play with your dogs. He doesn't get to interact with any. Yeah, he's going fucking bonkers, man. Like, that is his favorite thing in the world, is to go out and like meet dogs and meet people, and he can't do it. And he's just like, he's got like just the worst case of cabin fever. Like, he just comes into the office and is like, I'm sad. And it's like, I've already played with you a bunch today. I'm sorry, I can't take you to the dog park. We will get all of the other dogs sick. Like, we can't do that. You shouldn't have been out there Frenching all of those other dogs.
Oh.
Yeah, poor boy. I feel bad for him. He's going to go in to get the stuff removed in a few weeks. And once we have that removed and he's had an round of antibiotics, he only has a month after that. But by then he'll be completely crazy.
Well, I don't envy you dealing with that.
Yeah. How are things going with you?
Not too bad. Our dogs are doing quite well. We just had some folks over, and they kind of revert. Like, I don't think it's been a while since we've had people over, because they kind of reverted back to, oh God, stranger. For a while we were doing real well, and it's like, oh, hey, people, we like people.
Yeah, you get the whole herd of tiny dogs who feel like they need to defend the apartment every time anybody comes anywhere close to the front door, and they're like.
And it doesn't help that they also have kind of that herd mentality where, like, once one dog freaks out, it's everything's bad for all the dogs.
Positive feedback loop is what that is. Yeah, where they all set each other off. Yeah.
100%. Except Emma, who doesn't give a shit, and she will always be someone's friend. Like,
yeah. Well, that's the one that you raised. Like, that's the one that you had all of the influence on. So I guess that means this is some good things about Zach as a dog owner.
She's just always been a super chill dog. Like,
she is very chill. She's kind of grumpy old lady a little bit these days, but that's, for whatever is she 12, 11 or 12, something like that.
I think she's coming up. God, I got her back in 2011, and she was 2 years old then. So. Oh wow,
yeah, she's 13 then.
Yeah.
Well, she's doing very good for her age.
Yeah.
And we will not begrudge a little old lady to be a little bit grumpy. She's allowed, and she's certainly charming enough. I really am curious. I want you to get one of those doggy DNA things, because I want to know what her breed is.
Yeah. I'd definitely love to know what she is, because she's 100% good girl, but
she was listed as a Swedish Valhund, but she doesn't quite look like one. For the story, we should tell the story. The thing is, in like 2011 or so, we had gotten our dogs, and I was talking to Zach online, and Zach was living down in Austin at the time, and you came to me and you're like, oh man, have you ever heard of a Swedish Valhund? I'd love a Swedish Valhund. Look at these pictures of them online. And I went on to Pet Finder and I just idly searched Swedish Valhund, and there were 2 in the entire country, and one of them was in Austin. And I was like, hey Zach, you should go get the dog. Like I don't believe in signs, but when you're looking for a kind of a rare kind of dog, and you look them up online, and there's one of them in your hometown, maybe you should go get that dog. And you know what? It worked out great.
It did. I went immediately, looked her up and contacted them, and had a meet and greet. And she was just, I don't think she was actually excited to see me, because she's just doesn't really get super excited about stuff.
She's low key.
Yeah. But we got along great, and she was still recovering from heartworms at the time. So they had to keep her for like another couple weeks or something. But
Yeah.
as soon as they were done, like, do you still want her? I was like, yes, I do.
Yeah. She's a super sweet, very pretty dog. Just like one of those dogs that like when you show pictures to people, are like, oh my God, look at that pretty dog. Like very thing. But I think in the intervening years, we've both begun to doubt the complete parentage of Swedish Valhund, who the coloring is a bit different and the body shape's a bit different, you know.
I get the feeling she's probably like half corgi, half something else.
Yeah,
like
that could be.
Elk Hound is kind of my guess is the mix there.
Or it's just some weird ass mix. Like we had that with Pretty Boy. He came in labeled as an Anatolian Shepherd, and it turns out that he didn't have absolutely any of it at all. And like it just is a mixture of Great Pyrenees, German Shepherd, and Australian Cattle Dog that happens to look a little bit like an Anatolian Shepherd. And it's possible that that's the same with M1, where it's like, you know, Corgi, German Shepherd, Rat Terrier, or something kind of mixed that just by some transmutation of dog genetics turns out to look a bit like an Elk Hound or a Valhund.
I'm just grateful that like whatever combined to make her, like, she's been a very healthy dog. Like, yeah. Relatively speaking.
Yeah. Up 100%. That's the most important thing is like, you know, you don't want one that's going to end up with hip dysplasia or, you know, some sort of congenital. Oh God. Have you heard about this is the worst, this is stupidest controversy in the world, which is that, so there's a particular genetic defect that almost all Dalmatians have, which is I'm going to get my thing wrong, but it's something about like they can't process a particular kind of vitamin properly. I could be wrong about this one, but it gives them, like, all Dalmatians have a health problem. All purebred Dalmatians that exist have this particular health problem. They like it causes them health trouble. They have to eat special food that, like, it's just something about urea. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a problem with their kidneys. All right. And so a enterprising dog breeder was like, this is a fixable problem. We even know what like gene this is that does this. I'm going to backbreed in a healthy gene from another breed. And we're going to make quote unquote purebred Dalmatians that are 95% Dalmatian, but they just don't have this problem with their kidneys. And the AKC Kennel Club is like, those aren't real Dalmatians. They can't participate in shows. You can't call them Dalmatians. They're not Dalmatians because they have 5%, you know, like Labrador or something in them just to get this one. But the other one, and it's like, there's this huge split maybe it's been resolved by now, but there's this huge split in the Dalmatian community about whether or not they're real or not. And it's like, oh my God, guys, the kidney problems are not a quintessential part of having a Dalmatian. Please, just this is a fixable problem.
Yeah, just healthy dogs, please.
Yes. This is why, like, you know, I won't begrudge people who sometimes want, like, oh, we're going to go to a breeder to get a good dog or whatever. But man, if you just want a companion, go get a rescue, go get a mixed breed. Just, there are dogs out there who want homes and like they will be such good companions. And if you can get away with the restricted breeds, sometimes those restricted breeds have the best personalities. Like I have never met a nasty pit bull mix in my life. Like, it's so weird. Like,
they're such sweethearts.
They're such sweethearts. If you ever, like, we're the kind of people that if we see a stray dog out on the street, we'll get out of the car and try to get them, you know? And every dog in the world, we've had no success with that. Like, the moment that they see us get out of the car, bam, in the opposite direction, a million miles an hour, never see them again. Open the car door, pit bull mixes, run into the car and just get in and are like, okay, let's go, buddy. And they're just like happy to see you. Like,
those big old softy eyes and the giant square heads. And
the big old cinder block heads. And they're just like, I'm cool, man. I am totally happy to be like, thank you for bringing me inside. All right. Anyway, we've spent a lot of time talking about dogs. Let's talk about Mass Effect again.
All right.
Unfortunately, a game with very little dog.
Yeah. You can get a robot dog in 3, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Can't you adopt a Varen in 3?
You can.
Awesome. Okay. I guess we should have put that in spoilers.
Get you a fish dog.
All right. On to the mission debrief.
Mission debrief.
All right. First of all, the most important question. The Peak 15 VI, it's just a descendant of Clippy, right?
Yeah.
All right. Arriving at the Peak 15 research facility, Shepard and their team are ambushed at first by some Geth and then by some weird-ass bugs. And we're not playing coy. These are the goddamn Rachni, back from extinction. Jeez. Okay, let's kill some bugs. Shep fights their way into the facility and finds that everything is all fucked. They have to restart the reactor and reconnect some stuff. And literally, one of the mini games is just the move sections of pyramids game puzzle I used to play when my age was measured in single digits. Can we please have original puzzles sometimes? After fixing the facility, we head over to the labs and find that a bunch of scientists have trapped themselves in their cubicles by besieged Rachni. To make matters worse, some of them are sick with the plague. Y'all can't catch a break. Oh, wait, you made the plague? It's a bioweapon? This is why we don't do that. Okay, fine. We'll make a cure. Another basic mini game. Great. Okay. Hey, that not suspicious Asari from 2 minutes ago is attacking us. It's unclear and unimportant why, but after we cure the dudes, the doctor we helped will give us a key to the maintenance area, which leads us through a tunnel to where Matriarch Benezia is having a mind meld with a huge alien bug. There are probably other ways to get here, but I can't be asked to look them up right now. You talk to the Matriarch, and she can't be reasoned with. She just keeps sending wave after wave of Geth and Asari commandos after you. When she runs out of disposable allies, she stops to talk and breaks free of whatever mind control was affecting her for a bit. She warns you that Saren's ship, Sovereign, has an indoctrination power that creeps into your mind and the longer you're exposed to it. She thought she could resist it, but even her mind was overcome, making her Saren's puppet. She has a sad little moment with Liara if you brought her. You did bring Liara, right? But the mind control is too strong and she turns hostile again, forcing you to kill her. But we're not done yet. The Rachni Queen is still there and she uses an Asari commando as a corpse. She uses an Asari's commando's corpse as a mouthpiece to beg Shepard to release her. She was only an egg during the Rachni Wars and just wants to go off and raise 1 billion babies somewhere off in the galaxy. Her children here are beyond hope, so she needs a fresh start. Release her or dunk her in the acid. It's up to you, Shep. There's also the problem of what to do with the Rachni warriors and workers who have overrun the facility. Luckily, the people who set this place up weren't completely lacking in foresight, so you can blow everything up. Head on over to the hot labs and get the application codes from some dude who's just sitting in a chair. Have you been here for weeks just waiting for us to come along? Oh, okay, you're dead now. Oh well. Anyway, we take the codes over to the future Siri and talk to the place and start making the place explode and make a run for it. Did we tell those trap scientists that we were going to do that? Did we just leave them down there? I'm going to assume that they heard the alarms and have left as well. And that is the end of Noveria.
Yeah.
I was a little punchy when I wrote this summary.
So, yeah, the introduction of the Rachni was kind of out of left field a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I think there are some side quests that if you had done them ahead of time, it might hinted that the Rachni were coming back. We've already covered, for example, the Cerberus quests, where there are examples of living Rachni out in the world. So we know that some of them must exist somewhere, and I guess they're all coming from here. But yeah, and that's not the only side quest out there that has some reference to the Rachni. So
yeah, I think I actually did those quests after I did Noveria. I'm trying to I've done a lot of the stuff in fairly recent memory, but it's more just like that there wasn't really any foreshadowing about what was up on Peak 15. We just knew that.
Gotcha.
Like there are people who sometimes go up to Peak 15 and they come back. They're very quiet. Is I think all it said about that before you get here.
Yeah, there definitely could have been an explanation for both why. Part of the thing is also that I didn't even really cover it in the summary, but like why you need to have the Rachni in the story at all is a little bit unclear. Obviously, they felt like they needed it because they wanted to have bugs and that you want for you to shoot bugs. But like the reason why Saren wanted the Rachni Queen is because she had some sort of memory map thing for the conduit, I think is what it was, that she had gotten from the Rachni from 1,000 years ago. But that's felt very convenient is maybe the way to put it, that the Rachni happened to have this one thing. And is that it? Or was that the Thorian? I can't remember who it was. No, the Thorian had the codex, which allowed you to understand the Prothean beacon stuff. And the Rachni had the location of the relay, I think it was, that you have to go through to get to the conduit. I think that sounds, it's been a little bit since I did this bit, but like the fact that it's the Rachni, but like, and not even really like a really old Rachni from the Rachni Wars. It's a new Rachni that like happens to be an egg. So she's not, I don't know. It felt narratively convenient for them to like introduce this character this way.
I disagree a little bit. Like, I think,
Okay.
like, I think that, like the idea that like, because they mentioned they have like sort of like the shared cultural memory. Like every Arachni
Sure.
has memories of the queens that came before her.
Sure.
Which I think is A, it's kind of a neat idea.
Mhm.
And B, like, when you remember that, like, Saren is basically bankrolling Binary Helix into like researching these, and Saren is being puppeted by Sovereign to do this. Who would have remembered or potentially remembered the Arachni from previous cycles?
Yeah. The thing that I don't, what's narratively convenient is that Saren needs this thing that the Arachni have. Then why do the Arachni have it? Exactly. Like they know about this thing, but like, wouldn't the Reapers also know about this thing? Like,
that is fair. Yes. That point
and he is like hanging out with a Reaper. Like, it seems like the motive could have been something more like they're bringing back the Arachni so that they can sow chaos in the galaxy before the Reapers come back and make it easier for the Reaper, like distract everybody from the fact that the Reapers might be showing back up. We're going to reintroduce this century-old threat and use them as a 1-2 punch. First you get hit by the Arachni, and then the Reapers come in and sweep everything, together at that point. That feels, or entirely it could be like we know from Mass Effect 3 that and they can and use them.
Yeah.
And those are, though either of those ideas make more sense to me than, oh, well, it happens that this Arachni queen has a cultural memory of a thing that we, the Reapers, don't remember where it was, but we know that they have the thing, so we can send our one agent to go get it from her. Like, it feels like this could have been a better motive, is all I'm saying.
Maybe the Reapers just have really messy bookkeeping and they just,
It's possible. It's like, now that being said, like, I don't, like, that's just a weird little quirk of the writing. I actually quite like the design of the fact that you actually are fighting the Arachni. I like the fact that they show back up. They do actually a pretty good job, not of hinting that the Arachni are going to be here on Noveria, but I remember the very first time I played this game, when they showed up, I went, oh, that's the Arachni. And they had talked about it enough I heard about them on elevators. I heard about them in various conversations from people. I remember seeing the statue of the Krogan in the Citadel where they talk about the Arachni Wars. They had been brought up enough. They had done a good enough job world building that the moment that they showed up, I went, oh, it's the Arachni. I had that little like moment of, yes, here we go. Like they did a really good job of that, I think.
I have a question. Did you bring Rex with you?
No, I brought, I've been running Liara Tali almost exclusively. Yeah.
I'm curious if Rex has any like unique dialogue being a Krogan.
This was a little bit before they would just like say stuff like while you're running around. Yeah. Rex dialogue Arachni. That's a really good question because they totally could. Yeah, he apparently does have some unique stuff up at peak 15. He's got he wants to exterminate the queen, I think. And he says that the Krogan will take care of her if you let her go. Yeah. He's got a couple of things to say. It's not quite like, it's not super in depth, but yeah.
Like,
might have to,
yeah, I always just wish they pushed these things a little bit more. Like,
yeah, that's our giant complaint about Mass Effect 1, right? Like, is that they keep making all of these things where they get pretty close to something, and we like this game and this universe and all these characters so much that we keep pounding over and over again on the idea that, oh man, what if they had also done this other thing? What if they did this? It's like one of our big complaints comes back to just give us more,
Like I just want Rex to have like that moment of angst about like, like we were used to wipe these things out, and then they sterilized our people afterwards. And now these things are back. And like, what was it all for kind of thing?
Or, it would seem almost distinctly Krogan for him to go, you know what, now that they're back, maybe we can convince the council to undo the genophage. Where, like, obviously, if the Arachni are back, we're going to need a giant Krogan Argony again. And maybe he could use that as a justification for why they need to undo it. I could see almost that opportunistic of like, oh yeah, let's use this as a reason for us to undo that. Because he obviously cares a lot about it.
Like there's a lot of cool ways they could have gone with this. And it just feels, there's so many like super important things happening in here. Like the Like the discovery of like Prothean knowledge and whatnot that's just kind of glossed over.
Yeah, that can happen. Yeah. I'm with you on that one. Now, I will say, while we're talking about, are we still in debriefing or are we in Shadow? We're not in Shadow Broker Files yet.
We are not yet, no.
Okay. So we got to keep this to non-spoilery stuff. Okay. So let's kind of work our way through this before we start talking about the broader implications of the plot. So you come in, you start fighting the Rachni. I think it's confirmed pretty quickly that this is the Rachni. Like once you start talking to the VI, I believe it is.
I mean, like,
these are,
as soon as you hover your reticle over.
Yeah, that's true.
You get confirmation.
They don't say unknown bug or anything like that. Yeah. So, okay. So I have to, I put it in the summary a little bit. I do not like the rigmarole they make you go through to get things reactivated on Peak 15. I actually like running around Peak 15 where you've got this mixture of Geth and occasionally the occasional Krogan mercenary and the Rachni. Like you've got kind of a variety of enemies. I think the level design is honestly pretty good. I don't remember getting lost really at all in this section, unlike Pharos or, Eden Prime or something like that. But like Novaria's like design works pretty well. They've got these points where you're like backing onto yourself and going off little branching things. But like especially the point where they made me do the stupid mini game with moving the tower, where it's like, ugh, guys, like if you're going to do mini games and put the effort into them. If you're not going to do them, don't do them. Like, it's fine. Like you don't have to. Don't feel like you have to. And it's been a little while since I remember playing 2. If there are sort of one-off mini games for that as well. I know that they have their different versions of the hacking mini games in 2 and 3. But like, I can't remember if they felt the need to throw in things like this. Like here's a one-off stuff. It's just been a little while.
I honestly would have just preferred oh, the power's kicking back on. Oh no, the Rachni are coming, and just hold out against, a swarm of Rachni for 5 minutes or something.
Exactly. Or even if it was, we're going to have like spawners of endless number of enemies that don't give XP or something like that. And you have to fight through them from station to station and just hit buttons as you're moving through. Like there are ways to make sort of interesting fights and lean into the mechanics that your game is actually about, which in this case is cover shooters and, run and gun stuff rather than like stopping the game so that we can play, some weird ass mini game that you made up, I don't particularly care for that. I don't mind the, what's the word? Like the way that you go and you talk to future Clippy, the VI, and you get her she tells you that stuff's broken and you need to fix it. I don't mind having to fix the stuff. I just don't like the particular mechanics that they did in that scenario. I wish they had just make me go to a place and hit a switch, please, or blow something up with my gun or something. Like, don't make me like do that stuff. But yeah, that little section's all right.
The Omnigel option.
I don't remember if there was an Omnigel option. I think there wasn't. I feel like I was in such a mood at the time that I probably would have taken the Omnigel option if I was given it. I feel like the Omnigel stuff happens for some of the side quest options, but for the main stuff, they tend to not let you do that. I could be wrong. I could be misremembering. It's been a couple weeks since I did this one, but yeah. Anyway, so then moving on to the sort of all of this is to reactivate a tram, as is normal for Mass Effect 1. You have to go through all the trouble to get onto a train. You take the tram over to the hot labs, I guess is what they're calling it. And they've got a little quest hub there where there's a little bit of stuff to do, people to talk to. I always will take an opportunity to talk to an Elcor whenever they shove me an Elcor. You're like, oh, hello, Elcor shopkeeper. Yes, I will like sit here and like talk to you for a little while. And then there's the weird plague side quest. What did you feel about that?
Yeah, well, it seemed unnecessary. Like,
yes, okay.
Like it felt like they were trying to like build like a bigger world, and it just felt tacked on. I think it's supposed to just be either like, yeah, Binary Helix sucks. Like they're making bioweapons and researching Rachni, and like there's nothing redeemable about them.
Yes, and I'm with you on that. I just feel like it felt weird that it was so unconnected to the Rachni situation. Like,
no, I agree.
This just happened to be some completely unrelated thing that they also happened to be doing in these labs. And it's one of those things where if you have 2 items that are completely unrelated, that feels weird. If you'd had 3 things, then it starts to feel 3 or more different weird things that were going on. Then it starts to feel like, oh, okay, this is a bigger world, and the Arachni just happened to be one object that was happening here. But just having 2, I feel like they either needed to be connected or one of them needed to be gone, or make more, in fact, give us another thing that's going on. And maybe one of those is the solution to the Arachni problem or something,
I also felt it was super weird how quickly Shepard is able to synthesize a cure.
Yes, you get down in there and you're just shooting some Arachni, but you, Shepard, who has no scientific training at all, and depending on what no, I was gonna say there in Mass Effect 2, you would have some companions I could imagine that they could manage the thing and they would be able to synthesize stuff really cool. If you'd brought one of those later characters along, but Mass Effect 1's companions, none of them could have done it. Yeah. There's nothing that would have happened there. It felt weird. It felt tacked on. I do like the fact that they did get you into this little kind of mini quest hub, kind of halfway through the dungeon. That was kind of a nice break. And I know for a fact there's a bunch of different ways to get on into the plot from there. Once you get to that section, you're basically trying to get into the I think they call it the hot labs or whatever. And it's wherever Matriarch Benezia is. And there are multiple ways to do it. In fact, I think there's a way to trigger the binary helix people to all be hostile to you and end up killing almost all of them.
Interesting.
Depending on how you play that. And so there are multiple ways to get over there, which is cool. I always feel like I stumble into getting into that part of the plot whenever I'm in.
No, I felt the exact same way.
Yeah. Right. I don't feel like I'm formulating a plan and then executing on it. I feel like I'm just randomly running around hitting buttons until somebody accidentally, it's like I literally turn a corner and there's Matriarch Benezia and I'm like, oh, okay, hello. Let's continue on.
Yeah. For me, it was I was basically trying to do all the side quest stuff. And I was like, oh, maintenance hatch. Yeah. I'll do that before I go down to the hot labs, which seems like the main thing.
Yeah.
And it seems like the hot labs is some other unrelated thing with the guy sitting in the chair. And you're just like,
yeah. And then it does feel a little bit like, oops, oh, I accidentally progressed the main plot. I didn't really realize I was doing that. Okay, well, we'll just go on with it then. Yeah. Now, the fight with Matriarch Benezia itself is one of my more favorite boss fights in Mass Effect 1. That it's the one that feels like you're getting multiple waves of energy of enemies coming at you. Sort of like the Thorian fight a little bit, where it felt a little bit more like you're not fighting a singular boss so much as you're fighting a large force of enemies that you're having to overcome. And I like the way that worked. And the fighting off against, you've got the combination of Geth, who are all techno-based, just going to be running shooty guys. And then you have a bunch of biotics in the form of the Asari and kind of alternating waves. I dig that. I think that works well.
Yeah, I think I was over leveled or over geared because I don't remember I remember the first time I played, I had a lot of difficulty with this particular boss fight.
And depending on what order you do things in, I could imagine that you could come in here a little bit low leveled and feel really overwhelmed by it. Yeah.
But this go around, it was just as soon as they ran in here, Liara had them pinned against the ceiling while I just, popped them one by one.
Yeah. And then you talk to Benezia and, there is a little bit of interaction between her and Liara. I remember I made a note about it being there a sad little moment between them, where she's kind of overcoming the indoctrination and, warning him and stuff. And that works. I feel like that character, we lamented before, we felt like we wish we had more with that character. And I think that still stands, that we just kind of wish that we'd seen more of Benezia. But overall, I liked her character. I wish we'd maybe had, again, it's really just one of those things. I wish we'd had more, I wish we'd seen her and met her and talked to her ahead of time. If we'd had some reason to interact with her before, and then we could have more strong emotional reaction to her as a character. But I like the boss fight.
Where do you think we could have, they could have introduced her? Aside from we see her in cutscenes, but the first time Shepard ever meets her is literally right there in that fight.
So there's 2 options that come to mind to me. One is that when you show up on Noveria, she's still on the first part of the station. It hasn't moved on to the Arachni section yet. And what happens is you have an interaction and talk to her and stuff and are like, like, what are you doing here? And maybe that's a point where she holds all the cards and she's like having this conversation with you where she knows everything that's going on, but like can't openly attack you because you're surrounded by all these guards and stuff. And she doesn't want to cause an incident. She knows that she could just go on. And then like, you can I even like the idea. I have this mental image of her going into the garage, a place where you can't follow because you don't have the pass or whatever. And you have that like, she has like the smug look on her face as like the door closes between you. And like, you could have an opportunity to meet her ahead of time. And that would also give you more to do in the Noveria first part section. There's some interaction with her and figuring out what's going on and stuff. The other option would be to have her maybe on the Citadel or something like that, or another planet maybe where you show up, you can talk to her. Maybe she even gives you a quest, would be kind of cool. You'd have to do that before we knew that she was working with Saren, I think is the way. Where
so that's what I was saying. It's like I kind of regret that they show you that cutscene of Benezia and Saren right after Eden Prime. And then you have that whole bit where like you kind of out her to the council and everybody through that audio recording.
But then if you didn't know who she was and that she was dealing with Saren, that was their narrative in for why you should go get Liara. And that was how they wrote you into that area. Whereas you'd have to come up with some other reason to go check her out. Maybe she sends you for Liara. Maybe like she knows that something's going on there and she wants to get her daughter out before she gets overtaken by the Geth. And maybe that's her fighting against Saren's control to try to keep Liara out of the hands of the Reapers.
Yeah, that would have been a really cool method. Or you go the opposite direction of it and be like, have like Liara be like, oh, hey, my mom would know what to do in this situation. She's a respected, matriarch. Then have like that kind of introduction, like of the indoctrination or whatever. But yeah, I do wish we had some interaction with her one way or another. I do like the idea of her giving you that quest to go get Liara.
That would have been really interesting. I don't completely dislike what we've got here. I just again, it's the same old the complaint we have all the time. We just wish we had more. Like if Mass Effect had twice as much stuff going on in it, we would be super happy, and then we would just be asking for 3 times as much stuff. But yeah, for sure. I think you could have made that work more, and that would have made her felt like, because I feel like as a antagonist, Saren feels really strong as an antagonist because you meet him early. He has some interactions with you. You see him. He always feels kind of one step ahead of you. You're going to all these places and he was just there. And that you kind of build a personal relationship with him in a way that there just isn't with Matriarch Benezia.
Yeah, and the fact that it feels like, and like even some of the other characters kind of mentioned it, like it feels kind of like the council is covering for him. So like, like you've just sort of been elevated to his level, but it still feels like the council is taking his side.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, well, do you want to move on to Shadowburger? Oh, wait. Before we go into Shadowburger Files, we're going to cover the Rachni, right?
Yes.
Because we have that last little fight. So 2 things that come to mind when we're talking about this whole business with the Rachni. One, the thing where the Rachni like mind controls one of the dead Asari and makes her talk is like 100% just ripped off of Independence Day, right? Like that scene is just taken straight from Independence Day, which I don't begrudge them. I just wanted to point it out because every time it happens, I always think about it. I think about Brent Spiner's face smushed up against the glass as the alien talks through him. And then the Rachni were obviously inspired a lot by Starship Troopers, the bugs from Starship Troopers. Specifically, I think the movie version of the bugs from Starship Troopers. I don't necessarily think they read the book anytime soon, but definitely like visually you can see that they're kind of pulling some of those same sort of quadrupedal but with appendages look to them. There's some influence there. Obviously also I think there's some Half-Life reference in there. But then when you meet the Queen, I had already made this comparison earlier with Kaidan feeling a little bit like somebody had just read Ender's Game. And when you get to the Rachni, I'm like, fuck, you guys really did just read Ender's Game and think it was a great book, because at that moment, like the Rachni Queen, like making an imperiled plea to the person who could be her destruction, and then like getting clemency right at the end and finding some like connection with this weird ass alien bug thing feels so much like the end of Ender's Game. Like it's like somebody just pulled the exact same move. They just didn't have an entire story built up to it. It felt like a little aborted version of that same arc, a shrunken mini version of that same story.
Yeah, I kind of wish there was more fallout from your choice to either save or destroy the Rachni Queen.
I mean, like Shadowbroker files, man. Like, because like,
well, I'm talking like even just immediate, immediate reaction to it. Because it was like in my run, I saved the Rachni Queen
naturally. Even I did,
and like I don't really recall there being any like, oh no. Then again, like I think this time when we finished, we hung up on the council, or we didn't even take the council's call. So
yeah, and I haven't been reporting back to the council at all as a renegade. So like, I think I like the idea that the Rachni makes the promise, hey, I'm just gonna go off and do my own thing off in the rest of the galaxy. You're never gonna see or hear from me again. And the queen following through on that promise, I feel like is the right motive, like the right way to go. Like Shepard goes out on a limb and says, okay, this is an ancient enemy, but they haven't ever hurt me specifically. Like it was wrong probably to wipe out this other species. Let's give this another go. And then to have that sort of roughly rewarded to say, yes, we're going to trust her, and she does honor our trust, and follow through, I think is the right message for the character, because that's something that Shepard, especially as a Paragon Shepard, will continue to do, is trust people and like try to work with people and build a coalition and get rewarded for that. And I do think that is an important theme. And so I don't mind that that's the way things go.
Yeah.
I do have Shadowbroker file stuff to talk about that one though a lot. So
sure. Yeah.
We'll have to come back. But like, I feel like if Shepard like reveals that the Rachni are back and then the whole universe knows about it, then like what we're going to spend is the rest of the game defending the Rachni against waves of onslaughts of people trying to kill her. Right. Like,
yeah.
Cause I don't feel like the universe at large is going to be particularly conducive to the continued existence of them. Okay.
I do kind of like that. Basically it comes down to like the fate of the Rachni coming, like being determined by someone who had like no involvement in the Rachni Wars.
Yeah, it does, which is important. Yeah. Not that they could have, because they were like, what, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess could there be some Asari who had fought in the Rachni War still around? I feel like it's been enough of a generation.
Now I just want to see like Bronze Age humans fighting against Rachni.
Yeah. What was the Rachni Wars? When was that? They were 2,000 years ago, essentially. Approximately 1 CE is when they began. So yeah. And that means I think that even the Asari, there wouldn't be any living memory for the Asari, because I think they live to be about 1,000. They're known to reach over 1,000 years of age, but that's still quite a long time for them to have shown up. Okay. All right, let's get to the Shadowbroker files so that we can talk about some of this stuff.
Shadowbroker files.
All right, so the big one is your complaint about the fact that you wish the Rachni, your decision to whether or not to live or to spare or kill the Rachni, you wish it had a bigger impact. Man, I fucking do too, because the game is virtually the same, despite the fact that like they're in Mass Effect 3, the Rachni are a major enemy subsumed by the Reapers, and they show up all over the place. And it doesn't matter whether you killed the Rachni or not. That should be such a big change in 3. That but they couldn't not do it, I guess. Like they couldn't figure out a way to, like, it's so
like
weird.
That would have been just like they could have just done a enemy slot. Like if you save the Rachni, like you get the infected Rachni soldiers. If you don't save them, like you get something else instead. Yeah, you get like to fill that void.
You get more Turians or more Batarians or something like that. But that does mean that you have to rebalance every fight where those things show up.
Yeah.
Which I understand your desire not to do that, but like you got to commit, man.
Like I think it would have been really cool if like, I don't know, like maybe there was like, instead of the Rachni, there was like, Reaper-fied Yogg or
or Elcor or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
God, that would have been a nightmare.
Yeah. So like, if anybody doesn't really remember what we're talking about is in Mass Effect 3, if you choose to spare the Rachni, you will go to a planet where the Rachni have settled, and you will save the Rachni Queen from the Reapers so that she can stop producing drones for them. She's been captured by the Reapers, and they're using her children to make the Reaper, the Rachni Reapers, right? And if you didn't spare her in Mass Effect 1, then that character is replaced by a cloned Reaper or a Reaper cloned Rachni Queen that like you can't free or whatever. She's just evil the whole way. But like the fact that you chose, like, so basically it means that if you don't spare her, they still end up cloning them and creating all of the Reapers anyway. Like you didn't really have a chance to wipe out the Rachni here. And like it totally diminishes the existence of this character in 1. Like this decision about whether or not you did it or not comes back if you destroyed the Rachni, they will be back in 3 anyway. You won't have that particular queen to save, but there will be Rachni in 3, whether you like it or not. And that bugs the crap out of me.
I mean, the one difference it makes is war assets, which
yes,
because if you save the queen, like I think like the Rachni actually stay loyal. If you don't, when you bring them on as war assets, like they will eventually turn on you and like give you like a penalty to your war assets.
Yeah. And war assets is one of those things where I understand what they were going for it, and we'll get to this in 3, but because it is a positive negative number issue where like everything that you get is assigned a value, what they are telling you is there is a correct answer to all of these questions because one of the results will result in a higher number than the other result. And that pisses me off because I'm no longer just role playing out the story that I want to see and making the decisions that I think my Shepard would make. Now I got to be running the calculation in the back of my head. Every time I make a decision, is this going to result in more or less war assets? We're in spoiler alert, so I don't mind here. There will be a decision later on about whether or not you save the council who happen to be on the Destiny Ascension, or if you save it, you're going to cost yourself human ships and you're going to save the Citadel ship. If you don't save it, that thing dies, but additional human ships come through. I don't remember off the top of my head, but one of those numbers ends up with a higher number than the other one. So literally they have told you 3 games later, one of these choices is the correct choice, especially because with the way war assets work in 3, there is one chance to get out of Mass Effect 3 with Shepard alive. And it requires you to have basically all of the war assets. And that fucking I'm no longer in control. Like you have told me what the control for the story is. And all of my decisions are either numerically, they're either optimal or not. I'm either choosing to make the best decision or choosing to make a different decision because I want to see, and that pisses me off. So war assets are never a good follow-up.
Well, this is no longer the case in Legendary Edition. You could supplement your points with multiplayer playing. So if you played multiplayer enough, you could get to the point where it didn't matter what Shepard did. You would have enough points at the end because all your multiplayer heroes were sufficiently leveled.
Yeah. I understand. Like I understand the feeling of like, cause they're trying to, we should have a big discussion about war assets later on. We shouldn't spend too much time on it. Is there anything else we want to talk about with, okay, so you guys obviously chose to save the queen. While we're talking about the making decisions now for later, I also did because I'd already talked to Javik Keen or whatever, it's Jarek Queen or whatever. So I had the max renegade points. So because I knew I wanted to see the Rachni Queen in 3, I chose to spare her, even though that's technically not the renegade choice. But I chose to spare her as well.
So here's kind of just an interesting idea. Like we were talking about an interesting way to kind of make the choice interesting. What if the option was either you spare the Rachni Queen or you spare Benezia?
Ooh, that would be cool. I like that.
Because on one hand, like you're saving Liara's mom. On the other hand,
Yeah.
like you're
And a powerful,
preventing genocide.
yeah, powerful, and maybe like as one of those things where like if you spare Venezia, you also get the remainder of her commandos, for example. So you get like this a military force now back on your side and freed. That's the kind of decision making that gives me something to go, ooh, I don't know which one I would choose then, you know, which one really is the, like, because Venezia, like, and it wouldn't be too hard to frame that in the story where like Venezia had been the one torturing the queen and like is the one who like set all of this up on Noveria. And so the Rachni Queen very specifically blames Venezia for all of these problems and the commandos that come along with her. So like, it's a matter of, do you let the Rachni Queen kill Venezia, or do you kill the Rachni Queen to spare Venezia and save Liara's mom, but essentially commit genocide in the process? That's a fantastic idea.
And to top it all off, like Venezia is still potentially indoctrinated, and like that's not a known quantity.
Yes. And she's also not like, you could make the argument, well, you should let the Rachni Queen kill her because she did the crimes, quote unquote, that the Rachni Queen blames her for, but like she did that under the control of another entity when her will was not her own. And so is she really guilty of it or not? You know, and can we fight the indoctrinate? Like that's a much more interesting setup. I don't know what to do with it except to agree. Yeah, that's great. And it looks like Venezia herself doesn't really show up anywhere else. Yeah. Wow, she doesn't even have an entry for 2, and her 3 thing isn't at all about her. So yeah, she disappears after this game in a way that some of the other, even dead characters kind of don't, which is a shame. I really like her. I wish we'd seen more. And especially like just having discussions with her.
Like there's not even really any mourning by Liara about her. Like she's just kind of like, you know, I'm sad, but I've made my peace with it. And then that's the end of that.
Yeah. It almost would make more sense if like what they've got would actually make a little more sense if Venezia hadn't been Liara's mom, if Liara had been a former follower of Venezia. Like she had been a follower and then broke away. And so that would explain why maybe they're close and there's a connection there and she knows a lot about him, but doesn't like when Venezia died, she's like, well, okay. I mean, like that's not my mom, you know, like it's just an old boss basically. That would actually make a lot more sense for what we see. Cause
if Liara had been one of her commandos or something instead,
that would be really cool. And that would supply an interesting backstory for Liara.
Although I do really love our nerdy Asari scientist.
I love her too, but like making her a nerdy, awkward person who used to be a bloodthirsty commando is also kind of cool. I think giving Liara a history that existed before she became an archaeologist would give that character some depth, you know?
Yeah.
And like maybe she's never been good at the social situations, but like she's a powerful biotic and she knows her way around weapon systems because she used to do that for a living, you know?
Yeah.
And that would be really cool. This is, as you go through the level, you know, you have all of the things where every time you go through one of these missions, you go back to your ship and you talk to all your crew. And so I'm naturally romancing Liara this time. And they make a point very specifically to make a point. They point out that she's a virgin, that she's never been with anybody else before you. And the moment that my eyes nearly fell out of my head with how much they were rolling back. It's like, just guys, like that's just such a fucking nerd thing to do. Like whenever a nerd gets a chance to write a female character that's going to be romanceable, it's like, she's 100 years old, dude. Like, which is a quote unquote barely an adult by Asari standards, but still 100 years old. And like, she could totally have done other stuff, and there wouldn't be a problem. I wouldn't have any kind of problem with her being like make her a MILF, man. It's fine. We're gonna get that with Samara anyway. But like it's okay. She can be older than Shepard and more experienced. Like that would be what you would expect from an Asari, and like have a history. Like giving her a history before she became the person she is would make her a deeper, more interesting character. She doesn't need to be some perfect girl next door, you know, male fantasy bullshit.
Yeah, she definitely suffers a bit from the male gaze. A lot of this game does. We've touched on that in the past.
Yeah. We've railed on these guys for these things before, but yeah, that was just a moment where I'd forgotten that they made a point of it, and I was like, oh no, like don't do that. They get better about it over time, somewhat. They get somewhat better about it over time. But the moment that happened, I was just like, oh. Okay. Should we do our character bracket?
Sure.
All right.
Character bracket.
Oh, God. I know where this is going to go. Okay. I want to look up one of these two people first because I need to make sure it's the one that I'm thinking of. We are talking about Kai Leng versus Admiral Shalaran Vostanbe. God, we're going to have to first start by just ragging on what a stupid goddamn character Kai Leng is.
Hate him.
Kai Leng is, I don't even know where to start with how stupid this guy. Okay, so in case perhaps you've never played Mass Effect 3, but you still don't care about spoilers, so we need to explain who Kai Leng is. Kai Leng is the second in command for the Illusive Man. So he's the second in command of Cerberus in Mass Effect 3. So he's kind of not the primary antagonist. He's not even really the secondary antagonist. He's kind of a tertiary antagonist who shows up for a couple of things. And he's a mall ninja dude. He wears cool ass goggles, I guess, depending on how you might think about it. And he's got a samurai sword and he does flips and kicks. And I think he's a biotic too. I think he even has, am I misremembering? I think he's got metal claws on his gloves even. Like he's such an edgy,
he's a total edgelord.
Yeah. Like he's got this real edgelord and he has unfortunately the problem of being a character who has not been previously established. He's got to come in and he has got claws on his arm, on his fucking, anyway, he's got to come out of nowhere. He's got to be a respectable antagonist. So he has to be cool. He has to be, fearable, but like you have to fear him. You have to be, you have to also hate him, but like he just comes off as such a goddamn tryhard, and he suffers a whole lot from the fact that he's not actually all that hard in combat.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment that you get into a cutscene, he can beat the shit out of Shepard. And it's like the gameplay versus cutscene distinction for Kai Leng the gap is so wide that it is impossible to believe that he is as cool as the cutscenes want you to believe when I can shoot him a single time in the head with my one weapon and he goes down. And it's like,
I feel like when we get to him in Mass Effect 3, we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about how he could have been done right.
Oh, I have a whole theory. Yeah. Which was going to be some fan fiction, but I never got around to writing it.
But for now, like, this is what we have to work with.
This is what we have to work with. Yeah, we have, and I feel bad because, like, okay, he might also be suffering from, Vega got this problem too a little bit, is that there is a bunch of Kai Leng content in the stuff that is built up for Mass Effect 3, in the comics and such, which I never read any of the comics, but he's got a big, long wiki entry for a bunch of stuff that I don't know. Mass Effect Foundation specifically is what it is. He apparently shows up all over the place in Mass Effect Foundation, and then Mass Effect Retribution, and then Mass Effect Deception too. Like he's got like multiple appearances that happened before Mass Effect 3. And then he shows up, and I guess the writers who introduced this character and had done all this development thought we would know who the fuck he was. And we didn't, and we had no reason to have any opinions about him or anything like that. Like it just fails.
From what I understand, he's also insufferable in the books. So
okay, well maybe he's just like that. Yeah, he sucks so hard. So we've ragged on him a little bit. I think it's pretty obvious he's not going on, but he also had the unlucky situation of having been thrown up against Admiral Shallan Vostanbe, voiced by the incomparable Shohreh Aghdashloo. Aghdashloo. I don't know. I'm really probably saying. Oh, that's not even an I. That's an L. Aghdashloo, I think, is how you might say that.
Yes. I'm familiar with who you're talking.
Yeah. She plays. She's one of the main leads in The Expanse. She plays. I can't remember her character name.
The name is on the tip of my tongue, but yeah.
Christian Avasarala.
Yes.
Who is one of the best, despite the fact that I couldn't remember her name, is one of the best characters in both the books and the TV show for and are also distinctly different between the two of them. And fucking Shohreh does such a good job playing her. Like, I love that character so much. She's so cool.
And she has such a distinctive voice.
She's got such a good, like she's got that heavy accent. She's got that heavy Persian accent. She's like got this like cool in command feel to her. She does such a great job. And she shows up as Shallan Vostanbey, who is like, I think she's an aunt to Tali, or at least like maybe she might not be a, but she's at least a close family friend. She's an admiral, so she runs a ship and is on the Admiral's Council. She's deeply involved in your whole Tali loyalty mission, where you actually go to the Quarian fleet and like help resolve Tali's problems there with her dad, and you fight a bunch of Geth and stuff. And like she's the one she's like presiding over the treaty, but you can she's presiding over the trial, but is also, you can tell, kind of on Tali's side the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and because of her voice actress's just impeccable ability to project character into her voice, like I don't know, I just remember liking her immediately and being like, oh yeah. She also is, oh neat, I haven't seen that version. If you don't have Tali for 3, this character steps in as well. Shallan shows up and does a bunch of work to sort of replace that same stuff. That's pretty cool.
But what kind of monster doesn't have Tali for 3?
Somebody who made some bad decisions in 2, I guess. I won't. Man, I'm gonna have to look her up on YouTube to see that version of the game, because I'm not going to let Tali die. Especially because for Mass Effect 3, I need to have Tali alive in order to get the Geth and the Quarians on board. But it would be like, I like Shallan. I like Sharia. I can't say her last name. I feel so terrible. Agdashlu. I like her so much that I kind of would just like to see what the game looks like with her in that role. That'd be pretty cool. She doesn't stick around as a main companion. She just like fulfills some of the same narrative beats, as I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she's cool. I like her so much. Yeah, there's no way that Kai Lang gets out of round 1. Sorry.
No, that's fitting, honestly.
Yeah. He just gets shot with a sniper bullet 5 seconds into the first fight and then goes fucking down. Yeah.
But cutscenes come in and he goes on to the next round anyways.
Fucking hate that. I don't buy his character. It needed to be somebody we knew, like at all. Like it needed to be a character that we could actually grow to hate for real reasons. And like,
yeah, I'm just curious, like what character would that be?
Okay, we're doing it now then. It's whoever you killed on Varmire.
Okay, yeah.
This is the thing. Yeah, we had a discussion about this when the game came out. I was like, you make the decision in one of the characters dies on Varmire. Cerberus grabs that person's corpse. We're going to assume they didn't get vaporized by the nuclear explosion, but like they grab that person's corpse and they use them as a test ground for resurrecting Shepard. So they're brought back, but not to the same extent. And they get the Cerberus control chip that Miranda decided not to put in Shepard. So now you've got the evil version of that character. And because that character may or may not be alive, you have the voice actor already on station. You've got Ashley or Caden's voice actor already going to be in the game. So you just give them twice as many lines, not even twice as many lines to do, because that character can mostly be silent. I would make him sort of a Darth Vader style, wearing a giant mech, not even a giant, but I'm wearing like a full body mech suit kind of character who's mostly quiet and doesn't say a whole lot. But when they occasionally do have a line, it's kind of like heavy throat processor, so you don't quite recognize them. And then when you get to the point where you finally kill them, and like you make them hard, like make them a hard character, like in the fights, they're like, make them scale to level and stuff, so they're always going to be difficult to kill. And then when you kill them, you knock the faceplate off their armor and it reveals who it is. And you're like, no, like you get an actual emotional gut punch. And like, you could even have an emotional beat of like, Shepard has to kill this person for a second time now. Like,
yeah,
that's so good. That's so much better than just some random ass dude.
Yeah.
Doesn't have anything to do with Kai Lang really, except for how much he could have been somebody better if we didn't have him.
I'm just mad that wasn't the case. Like,
100%.
We're just gonna end this episode with me mad.
That's fine. That's about right. For anything where he shows up. Well, we never have to talk. No, we're going to have to talk about him again because we're going to have to cover him in Mass Effect 3. So we're not even done with him. This is an amuse bouche for us to get mad about Kai Lang later on. Okay. If anybody doesn't know, an amuse-bouche is what comes before an appetizer. And the only reason why I know that is because of an episode of Friends from like 25 fucking years ago. Anyway, we'll probably be covering...
watched too many cooking shows recently to not know what that is.
We are going to... Okay, so next week will probably be some additional side quests. Zach and I are getting a little bit tired of Mass Effect 1, especially with the side quest stuff. We're really eager to get onto Vermeer. So we might do one more side quest episode and then push forward with the plot.
Yeah,
so
kind of a best of side quests.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of them in great detail. And I think that some of the other ones don't need to be covered in quite such detail. So we might have, maybe it'll be like a catch-all where we just have them all listed and say sort of, well, here are the ones we liked. Here's the stuff we wanted to cover on. Anyway, that's it. That's for next week. All right. Bye, guys.
All right. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to the N7 Project. If you would like to read the upcoming playthrough roadmap, there is a link in the show notes below. We can be found on Twitter as @N7Project, at our website, masseffectpodcast.com, or via our Discord, scottpaladin.com/discord. If you'd like to support the podcast, honestly, the easiest way to be to write us a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or your podcatcher of choice. We read every one of those, and it gives us a real boost every time, and it helps people find the podcast. Or if you want to give monetary support, all funds to our Patreon, patreon.com/monsterpod, will also go to supporting this podcast. Mass Effect, its associated characters, sounds, plot points, whatever, are copyright by some giant faceless corporation. The N7 Project was produced and edited by me, Scott Paladin, and hosted by myself and my best friend, Zach Jaquays. Audio is copywritten 2022, Scott Paladin. This has been a Library of Cursed Knowledge production.